Welcome to this week's Harness Racing Alumni Show. I'm Freddie Hudson. I'm here, as always, with Trade Martin and Bob Marks. This week's Harness Racing Alumni Show is brought to you by the Meadowlands Racetrack, home of the Hamiltonian, which will be celebrating its 100th edition on August 2nd. For more information, call 201-843-2446 or visit playthemeadowlands.com.
The Harness Racing Alumni Show with your hosts, Freddie Hudson and Trade Martin.
Joining us this week, we have special guest, Mr. Eric Cherry, a Standardbred owner and breeder for many, many years. Eric, just recently, the Standardbred Racing Investigation Fund through the USDA just fined you $32,000. Tell us your side of the story.
Sure. Well, it's a long and short story at the same time. Basically, someone from the USDA contacted me to say that they're wrapping up some things with Nick Zurich, and that I'm not a target, but I helped them tie up some loose ends. And I said, sure, I would. So we opened up, and I spoke to the investigators, as my bookkeeper did, who's been with me for 28 years, and we basically told them everything we had. Some things they didn't like. Unfortunately, the investigators really weren't very knowledgeable about our business, and I actually taught them a lot about, everything from the USDA doesn't have percentage ownership, doesn't keep record of that we're not partners, we're co-owners, because the difference is we file separate tax returns, and all the other things go with being a partner, what breeding awards were, all those different things. So I was going along and giving them all the information they wanted, and at the end they turned around and said, something, we think you're guilty too. I think it's everybody's understanding that I spoke to, and it was definitely mine, that anyone could own breeding stock of broodmares. The only problem came into, or licensing, not problem, is when you wanted to race a horse, and rightly so. So, I've owned over 3,500 horses compared to, as per the USTA. This is somewhere under 10 broodmares over the years, where I owned a minority piece of. I think they might have 1 or 2 or 50%, but most of them are a minority piece. And I had sold them all over a year before the investigation started. I didn't even feel pressure to sell them, only because, they were. I was looking for the right time and the right timing. Nick turned out to be a very bad person, in my opinion. I knew him since he was young. I didn't have a social relationship with him. I have right now. I have over 40 partners or co-owners today with my different horses. It was never a big thing being involved with him and other people. I don't check their records. I don't know what they're doing. I always do things on the up and up. And I'm here today because my reputation is extremely important to me. I'm not looking to throw anybody under the bus, but I don't want to be one of those people that get thrown under the bus. So, the way it was written is very ambiguous, whether it had to do with race stock or breeding stock. If it's race stock, this would be very, very serious. Nick never trained a horse for me. We never owned racehorses together. There were, small parts of 7 or 8, lower-end broodmares that we were partners in. And as I say, I got rid of them over a year before the investigation started. And the USDA decided it was fit to go after breeders. The one, I know I'm rambling a little bit, but the biggest problem our industry has is shortage of horses. Every other problem can have a potential solution. But I've been saying this for years, but without horses, we have no business. So the first thing we want to do, whether it was going up to Diamond Creek or me or any other breeder, not only is the USDA losing money in their investigation versus what they're finding people, but more important is disincentivizing people from breeding horses, which is just what we need. Every other problem has a potential solution. There's no potential solution unless switching breeds of animals or something. But without horses, we have no business.
Eric, who is the Standardbred Racing Investigative Fund, and who gave them the authority to investigate you, and where does their power come from?
Okay, from what I understand, it's the USTA hired them. is primarily, I believe, two people. They're based in Pennsylvania. And I believe it's the USTA that is the one that authorized them, funds them. And I don't know how they decide who to go after, but, it's pretty, clear they're going after breeders, which is the one area we don't want to go after.
Well, my next question is, why you and not some of the known cheats that are in our sport that we all know of?
I don't know. I can't, you'd have to ask them. I think just because I was tied in at one point in a very small way with Sarek, and they went from that point. But, I think that's where it all started and ended with anything to do with Sarek. Like I said, he turned out, in my opinion, to be a very bad person. I don't speak to him. I never even went to lunch with him in my life. I've known him since he's 16. But I speak to 10 or 20 people a day in this industry. I'm partners, like I said, with over 40 just today. I've partners or co-owners with over 40 different people just today. I don't check their records. I don't know what they're doing. I just know what we're doing. Let It Ride comes first on the programs, and Let It primarily, and Let It Ride handles all of the paperwork as directly, with racing. But on the breeding side, every farm, wherever we are, bills individually. I don't see any paperwork that has to do with them except, basically registrations.
Yeah, well, another question, why didn't the USDA contact everyone that might have had a partnership deal with Sarek someplace along the line and basically say, hey, there's a partnership here with Sarek, you need to get rid of him, get rid of the horse, or something to that effect? Why didn't the USDA do that as a courtesy to the owners? Well,
the big question is, I don't know what they did or didn't do to other people. Okay, so I'm not going to speak to that. But since they keep the databases, you would think that if there should be two things. There should be a list of whoever is no longer eligible to own horses. That's the first thing. Because, how can everyone be expected to automatically know? And if I threw some names out there, people would know today, and I don't want to throw them out, but they wouldn't know today if they could own horses or not. So they should have a database. But two, since they do have a database, anyone who is related to them at one point, they should receive notice and have 30 days or whatever to change it or switch it. I can't say why they don't do that, but, basically the primary function is record keeping. This is something you'd think they would do automatically.
Right. Now, why didn't you have your attorney with you when they were interviewing you?
Most of the people did. I really didn't think, there's a couple of reasons. One, I didn't think I was a target. But two, I really felt that I knew my business better than if somebody I just hired and it would become secondhand. So I really didn't feel I needed it. I felt very confident in what I did was on the up and up. I wasn't looking for legal loopholes. I just presented what I did and, what I didn't do and what I thought. And I just didn't feel an attorney would actually do me justice because it would just be one more link in the chain that information would have to pass through.
Now today the USDA released the investigation report. Do you think that was retaliatory against you because you're speaking out?
Yeah, I think that they wanted to get their side heard, and they obviously didn't like some of the things I was saying. It was never meant to victimize them, so to speak. But the real reason I did this, when I spoke out, was it wasn't clear that it was just breeding stock and broodmares and having nothing to do with racing. And my reputation means everything to me. I've been in this business 52 years. I've never, ever, in any business I've been involved in or organization, ever been brought up at any kind of charges of any type or accusations. So it's very important to me to know, for everyone to know out there, that I'm not a cheater and I'm not a liar. So I went ahead, and when it wasn't clear that this was strictly breeding, I went ahead and said my piece in a few places, which I'm sure everyone has seen. So I'm sure they felt it was necessary to show there. The interesting thing that came out of that, if you read the bottom, which I didn't even realize, is that the investigators actually suggested a fine about a little less than 1/3 of what I was actually fined.
Right.
So
right.
whoever is on
that.
Yeah. So whoever on the committee decided that wasn't enough, and I should be fined 3 times more than what the investigators thought.
Here's another question for you. You do a lot of advertising with the United States Trotting Association. Do you continue? Do you plan to continue doing so?
Yeah, at this point, I'm not going to make this a personal vendetta. There are many people involved in the places we advertise. So at this point, I would have to say we're probably going to going to keep it at business as status quo and try to put this behind everybody.
Now, do you have any plans of suing or getting out of the sport or doing a major reduction?
Suing, absolutely not. I don't believe in that in general. As far as getting out, my first inclination was to say, who needs this? Let me just get out. And the more I thought about it and discussed it with my wife, Lisa, who also loves the business, we decided, why cut off your nose, spite your face, and that we really like this business. We have a lot of good relationships with a lot of people that know me and us, know who we are, and we're just going to go for it and stay in the business. We're not going to make any real, if it happens within the first 24 hours, I probably would be out. But at this point in time, we decided that there's so many good people in the business, and we enjoy it so much, and it's such a big part of our lives that we're going to not change anything.
Yeah, now, I'm going to go back to the beginning here, where, now, see, the horses, they were not listed in your name, Surik's name, or Surik's mother's name, or Benson's name. Mm-hmm. They were listed in a stable name, correct?
Right. But yeah, all of my horses are owned under stables, and as far as I believe theirs were as well. I don't really look at the registrations, so even now I really couldn't tell you 100%, but I'm 90% confident that's true.
And of course, you currently have about 250 horses and probably about 50 partners.
Yeah, that's true. And there are certain names I had, like Always for Sale Stable, that's actually started about 5 years before I ever owned a horse with Surik. But when I would sell horses at the sale, if I put down Let It Ride, not that there's anything wrong, but people will say, well, why is he selling? So many people do this, and one of the names, and you could look it up on the USDA website if you wanted to. But one of the names I used was Always for Sale. Hence, that's what I do. So some of the horses, since they were broodmares that had babies or going to the sale, they were listed. Some of them were listed in Always for Sale. It wasn't to hide anything because anybody could look it up. It's just it was for public perception. When I went to sell something, there are many of the large racing people that do the exact same thing. And as I said, anybody can look it up. There's nothing nefarious about it.
And my last thing is, did you know that you had to have a license in order to own a broodmare?
No. Not only did I know, but I've been speaking to people even since this, and not one person has told me you have to be licensed for a broodmare. Even people within the USTA actually told me the same thing. And the truth is, you really can't cheat with a broodmare, no matter what you do. Before the days of DNA testing or, identification when they were babies, maybe somebody could have switched a horse and done something and sold it for a lot more money because they said it was by, in the old days, Most Happy Fella and not Tropic Song or something. Yeah, who knows, right? But, and I'm just picking out two horses. There's nothing behind either one of those. But the bottom line is that you can't cheat with a broodmare. Or a baby. How can you? So there would be no reason to hide the ownership, or race or keep it on a different name for somebody else because there is nothing.
Okay. Hey, Bob, did you have anything to ask Eric?
I don't know. I think Eric has covered everything perfectly. Okay. I have nothing to add. No.
Right, then I'm going to close the show out. Eric, no. Thank you so much for joining us.
Can I just say one thing?
Sure.
Okay, sure. Okay, so basically, the biggest thing I started saying in the show, we really need to address is how do we, get more babies born every year? Because without horses, we really don't have an industry. I've been working on many things, trying to get either stake races for the stallions that the lower price stallions, or maybe having a breeding season where it starts July 1st, like they do almost down under. So we have an A and a B stake season, or let the horses mares breed to more than one stallion a year using ET. But whatever we do, if we don't do something to make it worthwhile for people to breed, we're just going to not breed ourselves out of existence. Even with the horses from down under, where would we be without them? So this is really, people think, and look, we want legitimacy in racing. There's a lot of things we want. But the one thing we need are horses. And that's the one thing that if you just look at the charts, every year we breed less than the year before. Look, we have a couple of really good bright spots right now in the industry. Kentucky, obviously, Ohio, Canada, Indiana. There are certain places that are doing their job, whatever. But if you can't make it economic for people to breed a horse, where are we going? It costs me over $30,000 a baby to have a baby born, raised, all the way through. I mean, think about how many horses sell at a sale. That's account stud fee, amortization of a mare, or sales fee. So if you don't get $40,000-$50,000, that's just break even. So we really have to address. That's something I think we really need to address as an industry.
I agree with you. And with that, I'm going to close.
Yeah, and this was just a very sad event, but, I've never, like I said, had anything like this happen before, but it's just something that hopefully goes behind us, just becomes a bad memory, and people that know me, and those who don't know me, just know I don't cheat and I don't lie.
With that, Eric, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
That's a wrap for this week's show. Please don't forget to join us again next week.
The Harness Racing Alumni Show